The old garage stood at the edge of town like a forgotten memory. Its rusty metal door barely closed, the roof leaked every time it rained, and weeds had claimed the cracked concrete around it. Most people drove past without giving it a second glance. But on the morning it was sold for just $12,000, one man stood across the street silently watching. Daniel Harper didn't fight the sale. He didn't argue. He didn't even tell anyone what he knew. Because the woman signing the papers was his ex-wife, Vanessa. And she had spent the last 3 years reminding him that he was a failure. She believed she had finally gotten rid of the last worthless thing connected to him. 3 months later, the city announced that the empty land beneath that broken garage would become the center of the largest technology district in the state's history. Its value, $90 million. The moment Vanessa saw the news, the coffee cup slipped from her hands and shattered across her kitchen floor. But by then, it was already too late. Years earlier, Daniel had been known as the neighborhood mechanic. His tiny garage fixed old trucks, family sedans, and motorcycles that no dealership wanted to touch. He wasn't rich, but he was respected. Customers trusted him because he never charged for work that wasn't needed. Vanessa, however, dreamed of luxury apartments, expensive vacations, and social media photos that made strangers jealous. Every evening she would compare their life to someone else's. "We're still living paycheck to paycheck," she would complain. Daniel would smile and answer, "Maybe we're not wealthy, but we're happy." She hated that answer. Eventually, the arguments became louder than the laughter. One rainy night she packed her bags. Before leaving, she looked around the garage with disgust. "This place ruined my life." The divorce was painful but simple. Daniel kept his tools. Vanessa took the house, the savings, and nearly everything else. The only complicated part was the garage. It had belonged to Daniel's late father. Neither of them wanted it. So they agreed that Vanessa would temporarily hold ownership until it could be sold. Daniel never objected. What Vanessa didn't know was that 6 months before his father died, an old surveyor had visited the property. The elderly man had quietly told Daniel's father that several companies were secretly buying nearby land. Something important was coming. His father had smiled and folded the papers into an envelope. "Don't chase money," he had told Daniel. "If this place ever becomes valuable, let honesty guide your decisions." After his father's funeral, Daniel found the envelope. Inside were maps, letters, and early proposals that hinted at massive future development. Nothing was guaranteed. There was no official announcement. Only possibilities. Daniel chose not to tell anyone. He continued fixing cars, believing that life should never depend on rumors. Meanwhile, Vanessa was drowning in debt. Her new lifestyle cost far more than she admitted. Designer handbags were bought on credit. Luxury vacations were financed with loans. Soon collection agencies called every day. When a local investor offered $12,000 for the old garage, she laughed with relief. "A miracle," she said. She signed the documents without reading the details. The investor smiled politely. He already knew what city officials were planning. Daniel heard about the sale from a former customer. He simply nodded. His friend asked, "Are you angry?" Daniel looked at the old building one last time. "No. What's meant for someone eventually finds them." Life moved on. Daniel rented a tiny workshop outside town and spent his evenings teaching teenagers basic engine repair for free. One of those teenagers was 14-year-old Lucas, whose father had recently passed away. Daniel never charged him. Instead, he bought him used tools and encouraged him to stay in school. Word spread through the community. Soon parents brought their children to learn responsibility instead of just repairing cars. Daniel's little workshop slowly became something much bigger than a business. Then the announcement changed everything. Every television station covered the news. The new technology district would include research centers, offices, hotels, and parks. The very first property purchased for the project was the old garage. Its final valuation shocked the nation. $90 million. Reporters rushed to interview the lucky investor. Vanessa couldn't breathe. She called lawyers. She called real estate agents. She even called Daniel after nearly 3 years of silence. He answered quietly, "I know why you're calling." "You knew," she cried. "You knew that land was valuable." "I knew there was a possibility. Why didn't you tell me?" Daniel remained silent for several seconds. Finally he answered, "The day you left, You told me that garage was worthless and that everything connected to me was worthless too. I respected your decision." She broke down crying. Her debts remained. The money was gone, and the opportunity had disappeared forever. For weeks she blamed everyone except herself. Then one evening curiosity led her to Daniel's new workshop. She expected to find him bitter and angry. Instead she found 20 teenagers rebuilding an old pickup truck while laughing. Daniel was helping Lucas install an engine. Grease covered his hands. His clothes were stained, yet his face carried a peace she had never understood. Lucas walked over proudly. "Mr. Harper says if I keep my grades up, he'll help me get into engineering school." Vanessa looked around. Children who had once wandered the streets were learning skills. Single parents waited nearby drinking coffee while their kids worked. The tiny workshop had become a second home for dozens of families. Daniel wasn't building wealth, he was building people. For the first time in years, Vanessa realized what she had traded away. Not money, character. Several months later the investor who bought the garage made an unexpected visit. He offered Daniel a management position in a large automotive innovation center being built on the property. "I've researched you," he admitted. "Everyone says the same thing. You're the most honest mechanic they've ever met." Daniel accepted on one condition. Part of the facility would include a free training program for local teenagers. The investor smiled. Done. Within 2 years hundreds of young people graduated from the program. Many found careers they never imagined possible. Lucas became one of the first scholarship recipients. At the opening ceremony he stood before hundreds of guests and pointed toward Daniel. "People think success starts with money," he said. "Mine started with someone who believed in me when I had nothing." The audience stood and applauded. Standing quietly in the back was Vanessa. She didn't clap immediately. Tears filled her eyes instead. After the ceremony she approached Daniel. "I spent years chasing millions," she whispered. "And I lost the person who was worth more than all of them." Daniel smiled kindly. "We all make choices. The important thing is what we choose next." She volunteered at the training center the following week. Then the week after that. Slowly she rebuilt her life, not through shortcuts or lucky deals, but through service and humility. The old garage disappeared beneath shining glass buildings, but its story never faded. People believed it was a tale about $90 million. Those who knew Daniel understood it was really about something far more valuable. Land can make someone rich overnight. Character takes a lifetime to build. And sometimes the greatest fortune isn't the one hidden beneath the ground. It's the one quietly growing inside a person who refuses to let disappointment turn into bitterness.